Hi, I'm Rahul. Imagine a scenario for me, alright? Imagine you're a ninth grader sitting in English class and the teacher asks for your interpretation of a part of a poem. Now, let's also assume that out of a class of, say, 40, you're the only person who knows the accurate answer. So you get up, rather, you raise your hand and the teacher asks you to get up and speak. Now, at this point, if you don't have a speaking problem, you just get up and answer, right? But things weren't as simple for me when I was in grade 9. See, I used to stammer, or at least I thought I did. Here's how a standard sequence of events would follow. First, I'd get up and everybody in the class would fall silent and start looking at me. Second, becoming aware of that, I would become anxious. I'd fear that I'll stammer and I would fill my head with thoughts about that. Part 3, I stammer. In particular, I repeat the word ma'am in a loop. Part 4, by the time I stop speaking the word ma'am and actually get to my answer, I'm out of breath. Part 5, I inhale and loop back to part 1. Hopefully, you noticed I am not stammering right now. There might be hints of it, but for the most part, my words are understandable. So, this talk is about my journey with stammering, how I've improved, what impact it's had on me, and how I got to that point in grade 9 in the first place. So, let's get right to it. I believe what became stammering started with just speaking fast back in grade 5. Back then, I would just speak fast, and teachers would often ask me to slow down, and I could. It wasn't very difficult. By grade 6, though, things start to change a bit. I start using the word ma'am at the start of every sentence when speaking to teachers. This, I believe, eventually became that ma'am loop afterwards. Over grade 7 and 8, my condition deteriorated, with there being clear indications in grade 8 that this was becoming a problem for me. And by that time, my mouth could no longer catch up with my mind. Come to grade 9, I hit my all-time low. It's been one of the saddest parts in my journey with stammering. A lot of factors, a lot of factors came together. Honestly, my best friend had left school. I was a 13-year-old pubescent, so I had to handle puberty, popularity, stuff that happens, at that age, along with stammering. My classmates often made fun of me right to my face. I mean, which is okay. I have a sense of humor. I can take a good joke about stammering or even my stammering. But after a certain threshold, it starts to hurt. Stammering started impacting every single part of my life. Also, given the fact that I'm a person who thinks and overthinks a lot, for a person who does that, to not even be able to speak to a teacher or friends in class without seeing visible strain on their faces as they try to decipher my words, this hurt bad. My and it impacted other parts of my life. My marks started decreasing. My self confidence hit an all time low as well. I started doing this continuous self analysis, wherein I would approach every aspect of my life with the question, is this the cause? From the words I spoke to the clothes I wore, my bad, to the content I watched online, to the stuff I read, everything about my life. And with time, as my condition deteriorated in grade 9, with each passing question that I couldn't answer, I was just more hungry to improve. From a kid who just wanted to express his ideas, I wanted to achieve more and more as I could do less and less. I wanted to not just speak, I wanted to speak to inspire, maybe even lead. So now let's get to the important part of the talk on how I improved. I'll simply walk you through the major events of grade 9, 10, and 11, and I'm currently in grade 12 giving this talk to you guys. And a brief disclaimer, I've rearranged events in a year to make it to make a more cohesive picture. I hope that's alright. So let's get to it. In grade 9, only three events take place. First, Minitex. And the year was 2017 back then, by the way. So Minitex, at least for the purpose of this talk, you can think of it as a inter-school tech startup pitching competition. In particular, that year, my partner Shashwat and I came up with an idea of an anonymous psychology service aimed at Indians, given that going to psychologists is pretty taboo in India. The idea, in retrospect, was clearly rooted in my stammering. So at the competition, Shashwat pitches the idea. We get through from the prelims to the finals, which was cool. But in the finals, I being the person who had done quite a bit of the ideation, I couldn't answer questions at all. Part of this might have been that I was a ninth grader who had no idea, who had like zero idea about how to run a business. But what hurt me more was that the one or two questions to which I did have the answer, I couldn't speak it out the way I wanted to. We didn't win that day. And on the way back home, I was really disheartened. See, because up till that point, stammering only impacted me. But this was an inter school. It was starting to impact my school as well now. And that's something like, it just, I hit a low, is the way to put it. The second event that happens that year, my parents and I, realizing that my situation requires help, visit a psychologist. And we find, to our surprise, which in retrospect seems totally feasible, that I didn't technically stammer. The psychologist told us that my words were just running into each other, that I had to just calm down and space my words out. The third thing that happens that year, I discovered this really cool platform or program named TED Clubs, through which I'm currently giving this talk. The idea fit perfectly in my mind. I wanted a platform where I could tackle my problem head on while providing a safe space for thinkers like myself to share their ideas and learn how to pitch them to the world. So I applied. That's all for grade 9. Let's come to grade 10. The year is 2018 and there's only one major event, Minitex 2018. But for a moment, let's rewind back to the ending of Minitex last year. So in grade 9, when I'm coming back home, I'm disheartened. A really interesting thing happens. The moment I step foot into our apartment, the answer to every single question that the judges asked me flew straight through my head. I have no clue how or why that happened, but it did. And it lit a fire in my belly. I wanted to be at Minitex the next year. I wanted to face that plethora of questions, and I wanted to knock every single one of them right out of the park. I wanted to, I wanted to, I wanted to prove that I could do something. That I wanted to basically redeem myself. So I worked. So since the day I lost, soon I started practicing. I would practice these practice pitches and imaginary TED Talks for myself in the bathroom or in the bedroom when nobody was watching. These helped me mainly in two ways. They helped me to experimentally learn how to explain an idea, how to speak when explaining an idea. And they also helped me think of the possible questions that could arise at various parts of my talk or my pitch. And alongside this, I was also brainstorming, potential startup ideas. Long story short, in Minitex 2018, I won second place. Honestly, I didn't think I would, but I did. And it felt really amazing. It gave me that much, much needed confidence boost. To get a hint of what I'm saying, think of it this way. A year ago, I was a kid who couldn't even speak to friends. I was having difficulty with everyday conversations. To this kid in grade 10, who won a prize in a pitching competition. Let me re emphasize a pitching competition, a place where people who are highly skilled at this compete to win a prize. It was really cool. So that's all for grade 10. In grade 10, I did get my approval from TED to start the club, but I made a mistake by not going to my school early enough. I went after the summer break started. Another factor might have been that I was in grade 10, so for my school, my academics were priority. So let's come to grade 11. Grade 11 starts with a new realization that one time isn't going to do it. I realized this when I mess up an interview in school. So in this interview, my peers and I are required to step in front and basically introduce ourselves and why we think we deserve the post. When my turn comes, I step in front and I rap my answer straight out. To put a tinge of humor in this otherwise serious talk, when I stopped speaking, my chemistry teacher, now also homeroom teacher, asked me to start solving questions at the rate I spoke. Yeah, the moment I heard that, I knew I screwed up bad. So I worked hard in the summer. To work on my speech, I made several videos for the orientation series of my school's tech club. This process was quite frustrating because I had to re-record pretty much every single video, and but it also taught me to find a balance between perfection and imperfection, and it was just good practice in general. At the end of it, we had a nearly perfect video series, and I'm pretty happy with it. The second thing that I worked on this year was in the summer break was TED. This time I went to the school the day our summer break started. This was, and I think this helped in that respect. So I went to one of our school counselors, Miss Aditi Mitra. I took her help to get my pitch to the principal ready. I basically spammed my school in person and to get a meeting with the principal. I got a meeting with the principal after basically going to school enough, and I pitched to a teacher, and the club got approved. It was pretty cool. Then I met another very important mentor, Miss Nia Bhutam. So we basically made a Google form, sent out a form to every kid from grade 9 to 11. We got about 70 plus responses of kids who were intrigued, who were intrigued or interested. Sorry, I mixed the words up there. We interviewed and shortlisted, got that list down to about 15 passionate members. And on the 30th of August, which is also my birthday, we had our first expedition. Since then, it's been an amazing journey. From that first expedition to expeditions which have lasted longer than 3 hours during the pandemic, it's been pretty amazing. And now, after having seen the talks of other club members being uploaded to the TED Student Talks YouTube channel, I reminiscently think of that Rahul in grade 9, that kid who wanted to tell his story desperately. By story, I mean an idea, a thought, a journey, anything that matters to you, like to the person who's telling the story. So from that kid in grade 9 to this kid in grade 12, who's not only been able to provide a platform for himself to share his story, but a platform for thinkers like himself, for other kids in his school community to share theirs. And I'm pretty proud of this. Excuse me. I still stammer sometimes, and and I have improved. I'm happy about that, but I've got a long way to go. So if nothing else, dear viewer, I'd say that the one thing or the two things that I want you to take away from this talk, or the just one thing, my bad, is that hard work works. It took me 1 year to go from a kid who can speak in class to a kid who won a pitching competition or won a prize in it. It took me 2 years to go from a kid who wanted a space to share, to tell his story, to a kid who actually started that platform, started the TED Club in school. So whatever it is that you want to do, if it's a problem you're facing, like it was stammering in my case, or it's just something you want to achieve, just work for it. Put in your heart and soul, and sooner or later you'll achieve it. And now, as this talk comes to a close, I thank you, the viewer, for listening to my story. I hope that you've enjoyed listening to not just mine, but to those of other club members of DPS Noida. I hope you've enjoyed listening to our talks. I hope that they've been worth listening to and also worth sharing. Thank you, dear viewer. That's all from my side. Stay safe. Bye bye.